What's up everybody, Brian here with BPS Customs, and welcome to the first edition of my series, The Best PC You Could Build. So today, as promised, we're going to be working with a $1,000 budget and trying to put together the best system we can for that amount of money. Now, before we start, a few things that I wanted to go over with you guys. First, if you guys haven't already, I would encourage you to go watch this video up here where I talk about this series, introduce the way I'm going to do things, and how I'm going to approach these builds. I also talk about something that's becoming increasingly more important in the world of YouTube and media, and that's sponsorship. Now, please be aware, yes, some parts of this build are sponsored. However, the reason that they are sponsored is because I specifically reached out to manufacturers who are making the components that I want to use in this build. This is not a situation where OEMs have reached out to me and said, hey, put this product in your video and we'll give it to you for free. And I've said, yeah, that's cool, it sounds good. That's a terrible way to do business, and you lose all your integrity and credibility by doing something like that. I believe in all of these parts. I picked them, I want to use them, and I want to put them in this case to make a system for you guys that shows you what you could do with $1,000. But ultimately, this is my opinion. There are so many different other ways to spend $1,000 when putting together a computer. You could spend $700 on a GTX 1080 and then scrape together the rest of the components for the system using the remaining $300. Will it perform great? Will it last long? Will it look good? Probably not. I try to take all of these factors into consideration when building my systems. When I'm putting together a system, one of the things that I consider is, do these parts match up? Are they on the same approximate level? Do you want to put a GTX 1080 with a processor that's 5 years old? That doesn't make any sense. Do you want to try throwing an Intel stock cooler on a 6900K? That doesn't make any sense either. There's ways to save money while building systems without compromising the overall integrity and performance of the system. So what I've done here is attempt to create a balanced system. Something where one component is not going to weigh down the rest. Everything kind of just makes sense together. Additionally, I am looking to try to get the best performance out of the budget. To that end, let's talk about the parts we've chosen. To start everything off, we're going to base our $1,000 system on the Intel i5 6600K. Ever since the release of this chip, it's been my opinion that if you're going to start a system anywhere between $1,000 and maybe $1,500 or so, this is the only chip you should be looking at. The performance that it boasts, along with the low price, excellent availability, low thermals, and crazy good overclocking really make it the right choice for a system build in this price range. Its big brother, the 6700K, is also an excellent choice, but it is $100 more, and if you're going for a target of about $1,000, it's probably going to be pushing the limit to try to squeeze that chip in. Also, the performance gains that you're going to realize by stepping up to the i7 really aren't that great, and if you're going to allocate additional money to your system, you're better off putting it into something like the graphics card. I had my personal system built with a 6600K for quite a while. It was an absolute workhorse for me. I never had any problems with it. It overclocked like crazy. It kept relatively cool, and I kind of miss it a little bit. I miss you. The 6600K is going to be sitting in the Asus Z170i Pro Gaming motherboard. Now, while this is an excellent little mini ITX board, I do have a few complaints about it. Namely the color. Now, I did post something on Twitter and it ended up kind of blowing up a little bit regarding the availability of mini ITX color neutral Z170 boards. They just don't exist. There's literally 2 of them. I don't know why this is the case. This Asus board, while it performs really adequately and has excellent support for overclocking because of the heat sinks on the VRMs, is not color neutral. It does have red accents, so we're gonna have to use that and play with it a little bit to get it to fit our color scheme. That being said, I do really enjoy the fact that it has SATA ports and USB 3 ports in the proper locations. If you take a look at this video up here, where I put a water-cooled system in a Manta, I used the Gigabyte board, but the problem with that is the USB 3 header was tucked kind of up and inside around the graphics card, and I had to route the USB 3 cable underneath the graphics card right by the PCIe slot, and it was crushing it almost. I felt that this was a terrible design. Some boards have SATA ports that are in the middle of the board, so you have to route your SATA cable across your memory or in and around some capacitors or something along those lines. It's just ridiculous. Yes, I understand it's a mini form factor. There are restrictions as far as where you can put things, but Asus figured it out. I don't know why other manufacturers can't. Driving the graphics of this system is going to be the Gigabyte Radeon RX 480. Now you could find my RX 480 review video up here, and there certainly was consideration given to using the new GTX 1060 in this build instead of the RX 480. However, I did want to use a liquid cooler in this system, which is the Corsair H60. Now this kind of did put a little bit of a cramp on the budget, even though this is a fairly inexpensive all-in-one liquid cooler. The constraints that we had by trying to stay within the $1,000 price range, along with the fact that the RX 480 is an excellent performing video card, made me want to go with that instead. Now, if you wanted to kind of cut back on the cooler, maybe cut back on the memory or the storage or something along those lines and go with a 1060 in a build like this, I would not fault you at all. It does outperform the RX 480. But for our purposes, for this system, this is the way I've configured it, and I feel that this is actually very solid, and I would recommend this setup. Memory for this build was provided to me by Corsair, so I want to thank them very much for sending it over. What we're going to use here is a 16 gig kit of Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4. This is the 2400 speed kit. It's going to be plenty sufficient for our purposes. I also recommend using an LPX kit or similar low profile memory in any mini ITX build. As far as storage goes for this build, we're going to use a Toshiba 1TB hard drive and a SanDisk 240 gig SSD. Now Fractal Design was kind enough to supply us with both the case and the power supply for this build, so I want to thank them for sending these components over. But basically what we have here is the Fractal Design Define Nano S and the Fractal Integra M 650 watt power supply. This is a partially modular power supply. All the cables are black except for the very end of the ATX cable, and it will fit great in our mini ITX system chassis, which is the Define Nano S, which you could find my review of up here. All right, so now that we've laid out all this stuff, let's put it together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to film a time lapse and I'm going to put that in a separate video for you guys. I know some of you will enjoy watching it, but it kind of otherwise will drag this video out way too long. What I'm going to do instead is in this video, I'm going to put a few select shots of me doing some of the work and then an overall shot of everything once it's done. Boom, let's get to it. So let's put it together. Let's get cracking. Let's do it. Let's build. We got a thing to do. There's a PC that needs to be put together. Okay. Alright, so taking a quick look at these benchmarks, I know that the graphs here seem a little wonky just because of the huge spread between the numbers, but I was trying to make the charts look as uniform as possible, so I wanted to keep similar tests grouped together. In any event, these are the system benchmark scores. You can see the Realbench score is very good, the PCMark score is okay, and the Firestrike score is actually quite decent. Keep in mind that we are running a system without any overclock on the GPU because of reasons that I'll get into in a minute. But the CPU is overclocked to 4.4 gigahertz. We're able to maintain temperatures on the CPU in the low 50s at 100% load, and that's all due to the Corsair H60. Getting into the Cinebench results here, we can see that the CPU score is only okay, and that's really as a result of the lack of hyperthreading on the i5 6600K. On the other hand, the GPU result is excellent. Our DirectX 11 benchmarking suite includes Unigine Heaven, Metro Last Light, and The Division. All tests were run at 1080p and all tests were run at their max settings. As these tests do tend to stress the GPU more than any real-world scenario would, you could definitely see that any DirectX 11 game is really not going to be a challenge for this system at 1080p, and most likely most games will run great also at 1440p. Getting into our last set of benchmarks, these are the results from our DirectX 12 tests, Rise of the Tomb Raider and Ashes of the Singularity. You can see that the results are significantly lower than the DirectX 11 tests, and that's to be expected. Still, running either of these games at 1080p is not going to pose a challenge for the system or the graphics card. Alright, so we're all finished with the build. It wasn't particularly complicated, didn't take me a whole lot of time, but I did want to talk about a couple things that kind of came to my mind as I was doing the build. The first thing is that this case is so much bigger inside than you would think a normal mini ITX case would be. I mean, the reason that it's that way is that it is made for water cooling. But that does mean that if you put a regular sized system in here, especially with a graphics card that's not particularly large like the RX 480, you're going to end up with kind of a lot of empty space inside. I was actually tempted to try to mount the SSD on the rear reservoir wall and see how that came out, but I didn't really think to do that until the whole build was really done, and I didn't want to take everything apart and redo the cable management because, I mean, it did come out looking very neat and clean and organized, which is something that I really do like in my builds. I was very surprised with how the cable management went actually in the back, because I did end up using a set of extensions from Ice Mods, which obviously does add a lot of thickness to the amount of cabling you're going to put behind your motherboard tray. Due to the depth of the cable management space behind the tray, especially towards the front of the case, I was able to kind of tuck those wires up and around and make sure that nothing interfered with the back side panel when I put it on. So I was really happy with that aspect. Also, the temperatures that we're getting inside the case are excellent. I wouldn't really expect anything different with a closed loop liquid cooler and a blower style fan on the GPU. The ambient temperature inside the case is going to maintain itself pretty well. The airflow provided by the front mounted fan that comes with the Fractal Nano S is sufficient, and we have exhaust going out the back through the radiator. Now, if I really wanted to go nuts, I could put additional fans in the top and even the bottom, or something along those lines, really get the airflow going inside. And I think that would be more appropriate if I were to be using a cooler that would recirculate the air inside the case. Something like the MSI Twin Frozer, or like one of the Gigabyte Extreme Gaming cards or something like that, where all the fans are pointing down and all the air is going to go back into your case and you need to exhaust it somehow. But overall, I'm really happy with the performance numbers that this system is putting up. Once again, as I talked about in my previous video, I wasn't able to overclock the RX 480 sufficiently, and I'm fairly sure that has something to do with the current set of Crimson drivers. Now, I talked to Kyle from Awesome Sauce Network, and he actually has been experiencing some kind of weirdness with his RX 480, where he'll boot the system once and the performance will be way down, and then he'll just reboot it and all of a sudden it'll be like double the frame rate. I'm not really sure what's going on with AMD's drivers at this point. I really kind of wish they would straighten things out, but overall I'm really happy with the way the system came out. The case is a perfect choice for a system like this and allows for a lot of expandability in the future. The power supply fits our needs without going overboard. The graphics card is going to provide plenty of 1080p and 1440p power, and the CPU is something that I recommend to almost all of my clients looking for a build in this price range. Storage is going to be more than sufficient. Having an SSD as your boot drive is kind of a no-brainer at this point, and almost all the builds that I do include one now. And the cooling solution that we've chosen, the Corsair H60, allows us to keep the 6600K at a very low operating temperature and allowing us to overclock it fairly significantly. That's one of the reasons that I really wanted to go with a liquid cooling solution in a build like this, when I could have allocated the funds towards something else like the graphics card. Having a processor like the 6600K in your system really incentivizes you to get something in there that allows you to overclock it, because it is such a good overclocking chip. You don't want to restrict what you could do by using a simple air cooler. So yeah, what do I expect people to use this $1,000 PC build to do? Well, I mean, there's really not much that it can't do. $1,000 is a decent price point. A lot of people are looking at systems that are less money than this. So if you're going to spend $1,000, you want your system to be able to do basically everything. You could video edit on this if you really want to, although you're probably giving up some performance to the higher end CPUs. You could definitely game on this at 1080p and 1440p. 4K, let's leave that to a little bit higher end build. But if you have $1,000 to spend and you want to build a gaming machine, this is not a bad way to go for sure. It would also work well as something like a LAN box if you wanted to take this around. This case is tiny, it's portable, it's pretty light. You could definitely do that. Throw some crazy blingy party lights in there and go nuts. Like I said, guys, I do like to make my builds balanced. When starting with something like a 6600K, it wouldn't make any sense to go all out on a graphics card. It just doesn't fit with the build. I encourage everybody to do this kind of thinking when you're putting together a system. Do my parts fit with each other? Is it reasonable to build this system the way I'm putting it together? So what did you think of this video, guys? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What's wrong with me? So what did you think of this video, guys? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Let me know down there. Also, let me know down below how I screwed this build up, what you guys would change, how you would do it if it was your system. Like I said in the beginning, although I feel that this is a fantastic point to start for a $1,000 build, there are so many different ways that you could do it that I can't possibly cover them all. But if I'm building a $1,000 system for myself right now, this is how I'm doing it. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.